iPad letterers, it's so nice to see you. In today's video, I want to show you how you can create this sand lettering effect in Procreate. It's a really cool effect and all it is actually an optical illusion. So I'm going to show you how to create the highlights and the shadows to make this lettering piece appear as if it was carved into sand. All right, so let's jump right in and let me show you how this works. We're going to start with a brand new canvas, and the size I have selected for this canvas is 2048 pixels by 2560 pixels. This is the standard canvas size I normally use for all my Instagram posts. And then we're going to insert a background picture that looks a little bit like an ocean. And the picture that I'm going to insert here is one that I've found on Unsplash, and I'm going to leave a link in the description of the video. So let's just resize it, and then we can put the lettering down here. And then we are starting with a new layer, of course. And then we're just going to write the words. And for this, you can use any brush that you like. I like using my IPL Hazelnut Cream brush, but you can use any other lettering brush that you might have already. Just make sure it doesn't have any texture. You want a brush that has a solid background. And then I've also made a color palette for you. You can get this for free from my website. It's called IPL Sand Lettering. So we're just choosing one of the dark colors. It doesn't matter so much. This is just the template that we are going to use for our sand lettering. And now we're going to write best friends here. One of the things you want to watch out with your lettering is that you have those cutouts not be too small, because otherwise you won't see the line in the sand that well. So what you can do now is adjust your lettering a little bit using the warp tool. For some reason, I always tend to write slightly up towards the end of the word, but luckily we've got the warp tool so we can adjust this a little bit, and now it looks pretty good. The next thing we want to do is create a new layer, and then go back to your lettering layer and turn the visibility off. But then what you want to do is tap on the layer thumbnail and then select to create a selection mask. And you can see here now it's got these stripy lines, and then you can see best friends ever so slightly. And now what we're going to do on the new layer, we are going to fill in the gaps here. And for this, we're going to change the color to a slightly lighter brown, still a dark brown, but maybe not the darkest. And then for the brush, we're going to select this noise brush. You'll see here I've got an IPL Sand Lettering Kit brush set. This is a selection of brushes that are already available in Procreate, but I ended up putting them into this brush set, and you can download this for free from my website. I just thought it would be more convenient if we have all the brushes that we are going to use in this tutorial in one brush set. So we're going to start with the noise brush, and now we're just going to paint in the sandy background. So you kind of want to give the illusion that this is sand, and this brush is quite nice for this. And now we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to use the same dark brown color again, but now we're going to switch the brush to the Aurora brush here. And if you're using the same size canvas and the same brush set, then the size of the brush should already be fine. But if not, set the brush to about 3%. And now we are going to trace the outline of the letters. So this is now creating the shadows for our letters. So what you want to do here, I'm just going to decrease the opacity of the layer below so you can see a little bit better what we're doing here. So we're creating the shadow that the sand creates when you carve those letters into it. And so what you want to do here is really just follow the line. And then here where you see the cutouts, I recommend that you go on the outside just to make sure you leave enough of a hole here in the middle. And now we're just going to go all the way around, and we are tracing the letters with this brush. This is nice and easy, and you don't have to be too precise with this. We're going to refine our letters in the next step anyway. And then once you're finished tracing the letters, we are going to duplicate this layer, and then we can turn the duplicated layer off. So we only have one visible for now. We're going to turn it back on later, but what we're going to do now is blur this layer. So select that motion blur tool, and then you can see here the slider on the screen, so we can blur this layer. And the amount of blur that you want is around about 10%. I think 10 is actually a very good value. And then we are also going to use a little bit of Gaussian blur, and you don't need a lot of Gaussian blur. So 2.5% is is probably all right. So this looks good now. So we can turn our previous letter on again. And then what we want to do as well is move this shadow layer slightly down and to the right. So now we're just going to move it ever so slightly. And I'm going to zoom in to show you what this looks like. So because we've used the outline of our letters to create this shadow, this now really matches that shape. So you can see now that that 3D effect is already starting to happen, but now we want to add some highlights as well. So we are going to create a new layer and then choose the lightest or the second lightest swatch that you have in your color palette. And then still using the Aurora brush, we're going to do the same thing, but this time we are going to paint on the other side of the shadow. So that means we're going to trace on the left-hand side of all the lines. And you can do this quite fast again. It doesn't take too long. It doesn't have to be too precise either, because this is sand, so this is not very precise, right? So it doesn't matter too much. And it'll look nice anyway. So this is still quite rough, but you can already see how this 3D lettering effect is starting to take shape. So we're going to create another new layer and then go back to one of the darker colors. And now we are going to use the driven snow brush. And now we are just going to emphasize those shadows a little bit more. I'm going to show you here how this brush works. So this creates this sort of almost sandy effect as well, but we're going to draw this into where the shadows are. So you want to do this on the inside of your letter and then ever so slightly on the outside as well. There's the odd sand that sort of goes on the outside as well. You don't want this to be too even. I'm just going to paint this in there all the way around and try and create a bit of a gradient here. So it starts very dark and then it gets a little bit lighter. And this really creates a lot more depth to our letters. So you really can see now how this 3D effect is really coming together nicely. And now you can really see how those grooves are coming together nicely, but we're going to refine it one more time. So we're going to create one more layer and then go back to one of the lighter brushes and use the driven snow brush again. And now we are going to even out those highlights, and you can see the peaks are quite steep now. So we're just going to ever so slightly round them off by adding some more highlights. So with this step, really what you want to do is paint along the highlights that you already have and then just sort of widen them ever so slightly. So it gives the impression that we have a bit of a wider groove here at the top. And then it really looks like we have little pieces of sand that are standing up like this. And this is really cool. It's just an optical illusion, but just using the highlights and the shadow makes it possible to make this appear as if it was really carved into the sand. And there you have it. This is how you can create a sand lettering piece using the default Procreate brushes that you already have. I really hope you enjoyed this little tutorial. Give me a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And don't forget to click on the bell icon to get notified every time I upload a new video. I'm also going to loop up a couple of videos with painting tutorials so you can keep watching and you can keep learning. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.